Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Naveen Chella. Today we are going to discuss about solid lipid nanoparticles. So before going to the solid lipid nanoparticles, we'll see what are these nanoparticles or nanotechnology. So nanotechnology is considered as a branch of science or science itself, which deals with the matter which is in the size range of 10 to the power of minus 9 meters, nothing but 1 nanometer. So US FDA has given a definition for nanomaterials or nanoparticles. So it says materials in the nanoscale range, at least one dimension within the size range of 1 to 100 nanometers are called as nanomaterials. Like US FDA, other regulatory agencies, ISO, ASTM has also given the definition, but whatever the agency, you can see in the slide, almost all of them gives the definition, the particles, at least few particles should be in the size range of 1 to 100 nanometers. Coming to the definition of solid lipid nanoparticles, these are defined as colloidal dispersions in aqueous solution containing a solid lipid matrix stabilized by the surfactants or polymers. So as solid lipid matrix indicates, these lipids are solids at room temperature, and as oil phase is dispersed in the aqueous phase, these are not stable, so one system should be there to disperse oil into the aqueous phase, that is nothing but a surfactant. So and the size already we have seen, nanoparticles means at least for some portion should be 1 to 100 nanometers. So generally the size will be 150 to 300 nanometers, or 1 nanometers to 300 nanometers you can consider. Sometimes what happens is larger particles, larger than 300 nanometers, up to 500 nanometers are also considered as nanoparticles. So what will decide the size, whether how it should be only 100 nanometers or only 300 nanometers, is the application, means for which purpose we are doing, and the administration route. So through which route you are giving, whether it is parenteral route, topical route, oral route. Why? Because the particle size should be strictly controlled in case of parenteral routes. So it should be 100 or less than 100 nanometers. Why? Because larger particles may block the veins if it is administered through the IV route. And for oral route, little larger particles, means particle size up to 300 nanometers is also okay. And for topical route, which needs to be applied onto the skin, larger particles 300 nanometers or up to 500 nanometers is also considered as acceptable. Coming to the advantages. So first advantage with the solid lipid nanoparticles is you can incorporate both lipophilic and hydrophilic drugs. So it can be used for hydrophilic or lipophilic drugs. And other main important advantage is no biotoxicity and the biocompatibility of the material. So the lipids which are used in the process are similar to the lipids which we'll eat in the form of fats or which are present in the body. So either biocompatible and biodegradable, no biotoxicity. And next, the methods used, means at least few methods which are used to produce solid lipid nanoparticles are free from organic solvent. So this makes it's very different from other nanoparticle technology where polymeric nanoparticles are mainly prepared using organic solvents and all those things. So which makes it more feasible, commercially feasible and environmental friendly. And next, as it is like other nanoparticles, it can provide a targeted drug delivery system, controlled delivery systems, and the increased stability due to encapsulation of the drug. So the drug is not exposed to the outside environment like pH, enzymes, Pgp efflux process. Automatically the stability is improved, which in turn improves the bioavailability or therapeutic efficacy. Next and most important in terms of commercial point of view or industrial point of view is the methods used to produce these solid lipid nanoparticles are easily scalable. So using the modern equipment like hot melt extrusion, you can continuously produce the solid lipid nanoparticles, which makes it feasible on a commercial scale production. So any technique, it will have its own advantage or disadvantage. Like that, solid lipid nanoparticles also have some limitations, like the drug loading capacity. So the amount of drug that can be incorporated into the nanoparticles is limited. Means you cannot use these particles for the drugs which are having high dose. Okay. And one more thing is stability. Means during the storage there were chances of leakage of drug or expulsion of the drug. So these are the limitations with the solid lipid nanoparticles. So to overcome these limitations, they have developed some other systems or modified these solid lipid nanoparticles. So that we'll see in the next slide. So these are as indicated in the picture. First generation is called as solid lipid nanoparticles. So as you can see, the matrix is made up of total solid lipids. So modified version of these is second generation nanoparticles, which are called as nanostructured lipid carriers. Whereas in the second generation particles, some amount of the solid lipid is replaced with the liquid lipid. So you can clearly see in the picture, in the matrix there are some shades. This is nothing but a liquid lipid, which is present in the solid lipid. So the matrix consists of blend of solid and liquid lipid. So we'll see the composition. If you take solid lipid nanoparticles, the lipid which is present is 0.1 to 30%. But in case of NLC, 90 to 95% lipid can be used. And surfactant 0.5 to 5%. Here also same 0.5 to 5%. So the major problem with this is, as already we discussed, drug expulsion and lower drug loading. But here we can achieve higher drug loads. So how we can achieve higher drug loads, we'll discuss in the next slide. This shows the cross section of SLN and NLC. So now I think the picture clearly tells. So as it is a solid matrix, so this is how we can relate this to solid state, liquid state, gaseous state, what we have studied in the basic 10th class like that. So what happens, as all of us know, solids are tightly packed, liquids a little flexibility is given, and gaseous it is loosely packed. So same principle is applied here. So if you see the solid lipid matrix where solid lipid forms a rigid matrix, once it is dissolved or dissolved in the solvent and processed, means it is unit process, unit operations are applied to make it into nanoparticle and then precipitate out. So during the precipitation, what happens is, as it is solid matrix, again it forms a tight junction. So that there is a chances that drug may expel, the drug may not incorporate into the matrix. So that's why a very less loading takes place. But if you replace some amount with a liquid lipid, so during the precipitation or formation of particles, you can see clearly there is a gap. So some flexibility is there where these drug molecules can be accommodated, or these drug can be dissolved in the liquid lipid which is present in between solid lipids. Thus, compared to solid lipid nanoparticles, these NLCs can load more amount of drug. So this is the advantage. So the previous slide which I have shown is a pictorial representation, but current slide what you are seeing is a practically done in the lab where they have taken an oil soluble dye and they prepared SLN as well as NLC. So in first case you can see SLN as oil soluble dye, it can distribute into the solid lipid also, but the distribution is very less, and that too continuous you can see. But in case of figure B, where 10% means 10% of the solid lipid is replaced with the liquid lipid, you can see clearly more amount of dye is there, and that too dispersed throughout the matrix. As you go through figure A to F, there is an increase in liquid lipid from 10%, 30%, 50%, 70, and finally only emulsion, liquid emulsion, liquid lipid is there. So you can see there is a clear cut increase in the fluorescence, that is due to oil soluble dye, and finally when you use 70% NLC, almost the dye is spread throughout the particles, and in emulsion you can see clear round droplet of dye. So practically also you can see how this liquid lipid is distributed into the solid lipid, which will help in increasing the drug loading. Next, coming to the applications of solid lipid nanoparticles. First one is drug encapsulation. So we'll see applications along with the advantage of this. So as already we discussed, drug is encapsulated into the matrix. So what happens is the drug will be protected from the outside environment and stability will be improved. So where we can apply this? So we can apply these to the drugs which are not stable in the GIT. So that becomes one application. So here what we are doing, friends, see, we are going through the properties of the system, then we can write the applications easily. So first thing is, it is used to incorporate unstable drugs. Second thing, some drugs which causes gastric irritation can be incorporated into this. So this is the one application. Second, and one more thing is, as the solid lipid nanoparticles also can be used to load hydrophilic drugs. So as the drugs are inside, so you can use these delivery systems for proteins and peptide delivery also. Next, lipophilicity. So what happens? This is made up of lipid material. So it is completely lipophilic. So application is here. It overcomes the permeation barriers. So biological barriers, the hydrophilic molecules which cannot cross these biological membranes. If you incorporate that into lipid, it can easily cross the biological barriers. And as it is lipophilic in nature, the hydrophobic drugs or lipophilic drugs can be easily incorporated, where you can increase the entrapment of the drug. So this is one more application. And next, so it is used to deliver more than one drug at a time. So combination delivery has more advantages, like it gives us synergism, especially in case of anti-cancer therapy and all those things. If you give two drugs, it may give a synergism. Or you can select the material in such a way that the carrier itself has some anti-cancer activity. There are some lipids which itself has some anti-cancer activity. So this can also produce a synergism. And especially as I discussed in the cancer patients, what happens is, these are cytotoxic drugs. If you give in high doses, it can cause side effects. So if you want to give a combination of drugs, because of synergism, there is a possibility of reduction in the dose of both the drugs, which reduces the side effects. And next, if you deliver a drug and one more a material or natural, like natural agents like curcumin or any oil which has the PGP inhibition activity. Suppose if your drug has PGP efflux activity, means your drug undergoes PGP efflux process. If you combine that with a PGP inhibitor, then automatically the bioavailability will be improved in that case. So this is one more application. And finally, the surface modification. So as these are nanoparticles, you can coat these materials with different polymers or ligands. So first application is targeted therapy, and next is prolonged circulation. As you know, these are lipophilic in nature, easily identified by the RES, reticular endothelial system, and cleared from the body. So to avoid that identification by RES, we have to coat with the hydrophilic polymers like PG, PBA, polaxomer. In that case, what happens is, the circulation half-life will be increased, means it will present for more time in the body, and then improve cellular uptake. So as already we have seen, these can cross the biological barriers, and by using specific coating with the cell-penetrating peptides or some ligands, the uptake can be enhanced. So these are applications of solid lipid nanoparticles. And next we will see what are the different excipients or composition of SLN. So the major excipient is lipid. Starting from triglycerides to mono and di-triglyceride mixtures, waxes, hard fats, and other lipids can be used. So examples are trimethylene, tripalmitin, GMS, GBS, etc. And along with that, we have already seen it is stabilized by surfactants. So emulsifiers or co-emulsifiers are used. So major ones are lecithin, polaxomers, etc. So this is the list. And apart from these major two ingredients, lipids and surfactants, other ingredients which are used are cryoprotectants. So what happens, friends, we'll see in the next slides. After preparing the solid lipid nanoparticles, as I told, if you keep it for long term, during the storage there's the chances of expulsion of the drug if it is in the aqueous environment. So to remove that or to improve the stability, what we'll do is, we will lyophilize the system, means we'll remove the water by a process called as lyophilization. So during that, what happens is, we will freeze the system and we'll apply the vacuum so that directly this frozen ice will be converted to gas. That is called as sublimation. So it's a process of drying the thermolabile material. As this is lipid, so we have to go for a lyophilization. But the problem with the lyophilization is after reconstitution, whatever the dry powder obtained will be reconstituted whenever we want to administer. But during that time, there is a chances of agglomeration and increase the particle size. To prevent that, we will use these cryoprotectants. So what these cryoprotectants will do is, these will form a coat around the particles and prevent the aggregation. So the materials used as cryoprotectants are trehalose, glucose, mannose, PVP, PVA, gelatin, etc. And another material is charge modifiers. So these colloidal dispersions will be stabilized in two ways. One is by electrical charges, and the other one is steric stabilization. So if the system has to be stabilized with electrical charges, it contains some charge, either positive or negative. Generally, the charge will be in the range of -40 to +40. This is only for the system which is stabilized by electrical stabilization. If it is by steric stabilization, the less than values like -20 or sometimes +20 or -15 also will work out and the system will be stable. So in that case, the major stabilization is because of steric stabilization. Uh, that will be added to the system by using specific polymers like PEGs, PVA, etc. So charge modifiers means, as I already told, it should have some charge for the stability, which is called as zeta potential. Either we have to use cationic modifiers to get the positive charge or anionic modifiers to get the negative charge. So these are some examples like stearylamine, diacetyl phosphate, dipalmityl phosphatidylcholine, dimethyl phosphatidylglycerol. So this stearylamine will give you a positive charge and this DPPC will give you negative charge. And next, agents for improving the circulation time. So I told you already, hydrophilic coating of the particles will improve the circulation time. So these materials, polyethylene glycol (PEGs) or polysomas can be used to coat, which increases the circulation of life. Next we will see how we can select the excipients. There are various excipients used, but each and every excipients will be selected carefully based on our application, route of delivery. Why? Because the excipients selected will affect the parameters